Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Flora Stemikiotis, Vice President of the Arts Consulting Group, and I'll be your host for today's Arts Insight Live. Arts Insights Live is ACG's ongoing conversation series exploring the ideas, leadership, and trends shaping the future of the arts and culture sector. Through engaging conversations with leaders across North America, we share insights, experiences, and practical perspectives on the opportunities and challenges facing today's cultural organizations. Whether you are an executive, board member, emerging leader, or arts professional, our goal is to foster meaningful conversations that inspire new thinking and strengthen the communities we serve. If you are joining us live, we invite you to say hello in the comments and let us know where you are tuning in from. As always, we encourage you to share your questions and reflections throughout today's conversation. At Arts Consulting Group, we have the privilege of partnering with organizations as they navigate moments of growth, change, and leadership transition. One thing we see time and again is that sustainable growth is never just about increasing audiences or revenue. It is about building the right leadership, creating meaningful community impact, and ensuring organizations are positioned to thrive well into the future. Today's conversation will explore exactly that. I'm delighted to be joined by Jay Wall, Executive Director of the Flynn Center for the Performing Arts in Burlington, Vermont. Under Jay's leadership, the Flynn continues to expand its role as one of the region's leading cultural institutions, presenting world-class performances while serving communities across Vermont through education, public engagement, festivals, and partnerships that make the arts more accessible to everyone. Jay, welcome. I'm so glad you could be here with us.
Thank you, Flora. It's so good to be here together online.
Together online. So, for those who aren't familiar with the Flynn, tell us about it. Tell us a little bit about it. What's its role in your community, and what makes it so important as a cultural institution?
That's a great question. Well, hi, everyone watching. I'm Jay. I am in Vermont in this beautiful place. It is 69 degrees and sunny today in the middle of July, which is extraordinary. And the Flynn sits in this magical, beautiful place called Vermont, and we very proudly serve every Vermonter across the state through the performing arts. Um, that's a special role and an important one, and one we take very seriously. The notion of every Vermonter having access to the arts is critical. And indeed, all of us, wherever we are, should have access to the arts. I like to say it's non-negotiable. It's like oxygen. It's just part of our lives and what makes us human. The Flynn is special. It's not only the largest venue in the state, at 1,439 seats, bringing world-class art from everywhere. But it's also an organization that takes access seriously by reaching people wherever they are. We like to think that we meet Vermonters wherever they work, play, gather, feel themselves, love their future, love their neighbors. That's our responsibility, and that's a very important one. The Flynn is, the building was built in 1930. It's a really beautiful historic Art Deco theater. And the nonprofit organization, which I run as part of the Flynn, is almost 50 years old. That was founded in 1980. So in 2030, we hit two big milestones of the 50-year anniversary of the nonprofit and the 100-year anniversary of the theater itself. And in that sense, we've been serving this community a long time. When I meet people across the state, maybe in a grocery store, or just, hiking, wherever Vermonters meet each other, and people find out I work at the Flynn, they all have amazing stories about their relationship. And the most common one I get is, oh, when I was a kid, I took a school bus to the Flynn. And I remember coming to that theater, and I always say, well, what did you see? Because, I'm always curious. And they're less likely to remember that than they are to remember the bus ride, the bagged lunch, their friend next to them, the walking in the doors, the sitting in the seats, the energy, the specialness of that moment. And that sort of says a lot to me about what the Flynn really does, is that we're integrated into the lives of the state. And what could be better?
Not much, I don't think. So you already talked about the fact that you're presenting world-class performances of all different kinds, but you also invest in arts education, community engagement, residencies, public festivals. What's the philosophy? You've said some of it behind that broader approach. Beyond, so you said serving every Vermonter. Is there more to that that you'd like to share?
Is there more? There's so much more. And I'm sure everyone on this call who's obviously invested in the success of the arts in America has a lot to say. And that's a conversation that we're all having together, is how do we continue to be of service? One of the ways that we've been thinking a lot about that is, I talked about this as historic venue, but the mission of the organization is not the building. The mission is people. And we have to reach people where we can through a lot of different platforms. And our success is not measured in how many people come to this building. It's how many people engage with themselves and their neighbors and their children. That's really what we're trying to do. And so we have to find a lot of methodologies to do that. We take the idea of activating public space very seriously. So we think that the arts could be anywhere that people gather and connect with themselves. For that, we have a jazz festival, which is now 43 years old. Jason Moran was our curator this year, and that was extraordinary. We do a project called Playing Fields, where we go on a tour of the sports fields of high schools all around the state, turning those sports fields into performing arts venues, and inviting not just the school, the kids and their teachers, but their neighbors and their grandparents for these huge free shows. We've been taking over the State House Capitol, the Capitol at the State House lawn at the capital of Vermont, which is in Montpelier. We've taken that over and turned that into a performance venue. We produce a parade where we lead kids down the street any way we can that people are connecting to themselves. That's what we do. And that's what it means when we say we do partnerships at festivals and residencies. We're constantly thinking of ways to connect each other through the arts. And that might mean bringing the best of Broadway shows here, or some of your favorite musical artists. And that might mean marching in a parade with your kids with drums and puppets and just having a good time. It might mean dancing with 4,000 of your neighbors to Mavis Staples, as we all just did here in Vermont a few weeks ago. Or that might mean gathering on a mountain while artists make a project and you're part of a choir of 100 of your neighbors singing together, which is another project we did recently. So we think pretty broadly about what the arts mean and how they work, how to connect people through them.
You're making me want to come to Vermont and spend some time with you at the Flynn. So tell me a little bit more about why the Flynn's opportunities and challenges made this the right moment to think differently about how the organization is growing.
Sure. As we think more broadly about what access means, as we decentralize the architecture as our mission, as I talked about earlier, and we think about how to do that, how do we connect lots of different kinds of people? How do we create containers of conversation with diverse communities who make Vermont their home? We need to think broadly about what our communication tools are. We need to think as broadly about the communication tools and the support structures of those things as we do about the artistic programming. And so as I've pushed what the artistic programming can be at the Flynn, we need a team, particularly leadership, who helps us grow in that way as well. And these two positions we're looking for are really critical to that growth strategy and in that thought leadership. It's a great opportunity to be part of an organization which is thinking, I hope, pretty creatively about what it means to serve people and to making sure that the citizens of our state are at the center of our work. And we need help. It's a good time to do it. This past fiscal year alone, we were able to reach 60,000 people outside of our building. And in a state our size, that's 10% of the state's population. And so we want to get better at that. We need more people thinking critically about how to do that. Our staff has been growing, and leadership needs to grow with it. We want to respect everybody's participation, everybody's feedback, everybody's capacity. And so we can't just keep doing more. We have to make sure we grow our team to support that desire and that plan.
So let's talk a little bit about these two roles that we're working with you on at the Flynn. Specifically, first, the new role of the Chief Growth and Impact Officer. Those two words together, growth and impact, really are very meaningful. So to continue on what you were talking about, growing the staff and how that will impact on the Flynn's journey, look, growth and impact. I didn't even mean to do that. Why are they inseparable to you, and what do you need in this role?
Well, I find it interesting that your introduction to why you do these talks, if you go to your own notes, you use the words growth and impact actually in terms of what they mean. And you defined them as growth doesn't just mean more ticket sales, and impact doesn't just, you were very cleverly saying, actually, the act of conversation and what the outcome is, the act of gathering is critical here. The act of investing in people, the impact, in your case, investing in leadership, is partly what we're talking about. So growth and impact, I came up with that title because this person's going to be responsible in a large way for both the communication structures that lead to revenue. We can talk about what that means, but what is growth and what kind of growth are we talking about? That's part of the conversation. Growth means a lot of things. It's how the organization grows, how its approaches grow, how its thoughtfulness grows, how its creativity grows, and how we reach the people that we're unable to reach, who's being left out of the conversation, who can we make room for at the table, how are we going to reach them, how do we want to talk about that. We're building a new website, which we'll launch soon. How are we going to use technology tools to talk to more people? What is that growth plan? What is the full structure? And then impact, of course, is what does it mean? What are we achieving? How do we make a difference in people's lives? How do we measure that? That is one of the constant questions of the arts field. You know, we all believe that when you get 1,000 people laughing together in a room at a play or something, or a comedian, that we've achieved something meaningful in terms of their connection to themselves. But we want to do more of that. We want to understand what change that means, and that's constantly evolving. And so the growth and impact leader here is really thinking about, all right, we've got communication platforms that grow. We need support structures that grow. We have an organization that's growing. We're growing geographically. We're growing in terms of the kinds of programming we're doing. And then we want to understand what that means so we can collect feedback so that we can respond appropriately to all the different stakeholders that we have. A great example of what that growth can mean is, well, literally just this week, and maybe if you're watching this, you know this already because you're interested in the Flynn, but we launched a major new national initiative. The Flynn has never launched a national initiative. We launched a program called Women Plus on the Edge of Democracy, where we've asked 36 of the most accomplished women identifying playwrights in the English-speaking language, including Pulitzer Prize winners and Tony Award winners, to take on democracy in an anthology we are publishing of 10-minute plays that will be free to perform for anyone in the world who wants to perform them leading up to the midterms. It includes Lynn Nottage and Sarah Rule and Heidi Schreck and Lauren M. Gunderson, some major voices in theater in America, hopefully leading conversations about community. You know, that says, at the Flynn, we've commissioned that because we believe, well, we got to get involved. There's a lot happening in the world. And I fundamentally believe that we should be listening to each other and being in dialogue about where we want our country to be. And when I thought about who might lead that I thought of these unbelievably talented women who have for years been chronicling what they see as happening in their community, in their nation. And so we invited them to do so. The growth and impact officer has to take that idea and help thinking about, how does that build relationships? How does that build audiences? How does that build support? How might that build funding structures? How might that build audiences for other events? How might that build sort of the technical stuff, mailing lists, engagement online? You know, there's a lot of opportunity when you launch a national project. And so this is a really great time for this job because they're walking into some really creative thinking and some bold ideas. And I hope that's fun and exciting for the right candidate.
Well, I can't wait to get my copy and maybe work with my friends to perform some of these plays. It sounds fantastic. So you're bringing together with this job, though, instead of expanding each department, you're bringing together marketing development, strategic communications, and corporate partnerships under this Chief Growth and Impact Officer. What do you see is the opportunity of bringing them together with a shared strategy? The shared strategy is the opportunity.
Well, so there's a lot of answers to that question. And the first one I'll say is, I'm not sure 100%. I think the right person's going to be part of developing for all of us what this can be. And I'm comfortable saying, there are lots of pieces of this I don't know fully. And that's why we're asking, that's why we created a new job, so that we can have more support and more thinking and more opportunity. But fundamentally, the idea of connecting the revenue sides of the organization and the communication sides of the organization is that I think in our business, revenue and communication are mostly the same thing. When we have a show coming up, you know, and if we are trying to sell tickets to it, and we know the tickets represent revenue, but the only way anybody buys a ticket to a show or an experience is you have to be communicated to about it. You have to set up what will happen, what it's about, what people will feel, what they might experience, how they might leave a richer, fuller person, we hope. And that's about communication. Similarly, we have a pretty robust membership program. The Flynn derives a lot of revenue from our members, which are community members across Vermont who believe in our work and our education efforts and our mission. And so they support us. And that is, again, about communication. What are those funds supporting? What differences are we making in kids' lives? How many schools across the state are we in? And I'll tell you, we're in about 85% of the schools of the state, which is an incredible reach. In fact, at the recent Jazz Festival that we produced, we had 44 school bands from across Vermont. And 44 school bands at different schools is a lot for any state, but in a state of 600,000 people, it's an extraordinary feat. And we're really, really proud of how widely we try to think about what participation in our work means. That said, when you connect communications of all those schools, when you connect revenues, both tickets and donors and members and grants, right? When you connect a new website and social media tools, when you connect the fact that we're launching a national theater initiative to drive conversation and to publish a book about that, suddenly you kind of start to understand how revenue and communication are intricately linked. You know, that and organizations like TRG will talk about sort of a communications funnel, right? When you have someone who's never bought a ticket before in their first show, to someone who's just become a member, to someone who might become a subscriber to the Broadway series, to someone who might attend multiple events at the Jazz Festival, to someone who becomes a donor, right? To maybe someone who becomes a board member even. There's a huge pattern, a huge path. And I think the opportunity as we think creatively about what our programming is to really think through what that path looks like and how all the communication tools and all the revenue tools are in alignment. And that's really what growth and impact is going to mean here, and why we need a really amazing person to come join us to be part of that.
Well, it's a great opportunity. If you have questions, people listening in, please leave them in the chat. But in the meantime, I'm going to go on and talk a little bit about the director of marketing. So at the same time, we're working with you for a new director of marketing. Marketing has really changed significantly over the last decade. I mean, I would have said 10 years ago it had changed significantly over that decade. Maybe I've just been around too long. But what role do you see marketing not only having in shaping not only audience development, but your community engagement and your organizational impact?
That's a great point. You know, it's interesting when you say marketing has changed a lot. The operational proficiencies of marketing have changed.
True.
The processes and technologies have changed. The premise is not, which is how does a marketing team build relationships with people in a community with the arts organization? That is fundamentally the goal. How are we storytellers? How are we relationship builders? How do we steward those relationships? And how do we engage in meaningful conversation? That goes two ways. And that's at the heart of our director of marketing, who's leading that strategy. They have to lead a strategy that builds those relationships and then converts those relationships into action that's meaningful for the organization. Often that's ticket sales. Sometimes that's just come dance with your neighbors on the waterfront to, you know, the best jazz bands of the world. But marketing does take those, build relationships and convert them into action. And that how we do that has changed. And it's, by the way, still changing, you know, just I'm sure in 3 months it'll be a slightly different thing. And we have to be honest about that. And so I'm looking for a kind of flexibility and adaptability, and then a kind of tenacity about, and persistence to caring for that and really listening and being there for people, even when it's hard to talk to them or they're not ready to have that conversation. We just keep trying and we keep being there for others. That's what we're looking for with marketing. We're not entrenched in a lot of practices because so much of our programming is developing and still growing. So I think it's a really good opportunity for someone to join us. Somehow the team's somewhat of a blank page. We're being led now by a really amazing interim marketing director, and she's really setting up some tools so a new marketing director can come in with their own needs and really make something magical. And that's kind of exciting. And we're looking for someone who's excited by that prospect. Yeah.
Well, you just answered my next question, which is about the kind of people that you're looking for and what excites you about those people. So flexibility, enthusiasm. I hear you talking about enthusiasm for what the Flynn is doing and for the opportunities to be part of that and to build something with you, which I think is exciting. But, the culture of the organization is often a reason why people are looking to make a move to that organization. So how would you describe the Flynn when it comes to not only leading in each case their own work, but collaborating and building their own careers as well.
Um, thank you. The culture of the Flynn starts with the culture of Vermont, which is a warm, inviting, magical, as I've said, place. It's not just that we love the outdoors and we're connected to the outdoors. It's not just that Ben and Jerry's was born here and Bernie Sanders got his start here as the mayor of Burlington, but it's all those things as well. It's the ways in which we care for our neighbors, in which we care for the earth, in which we and have deep respect for those things. So that starts to inform what an arts organization that serves that community should look like and should feel like to be a part of it. And that's what we're aiming for. The culture, that's at the heart of it, and that's what we're welcoming people to be part of. The organizations, as many organizations have since COVID, we've gone through a period of change. We're in a period of growth. And we're inviting new leadership. So there's even more opportunity to intentionally shape what the culture we want is, and to be as thoughtful as we can about that, to make sure that voices matter, perspectives matter, and that we're serving every individual. That's not easy. It's easy to say, it's hard to do. So I'm looking for a team of people who care about that and are gonna roll up their sleeves and be excited by that prospect. Oh, I lost your mic.
6 years on Zoom, and I can still forget that I'm on mute. 5 years from now, if these roles have been successful, if you've been successful, if the Flynn has been successful, what will be different at the Flynn? What do you hope audiences might say, artists might say, the community might say and experience because of the investment and change that you're starting now?
Well, that's a great question. So we've just a year ago, the board and the passed a new strategic plan about where we want to be on our 100th day in 2030, and that really looks like what you would expect to see in some ways, which is we're looking for some levels of financial resilience. So we intend to launch some kind of capital campaign around our endowment in the next 5 years. But that also looks like, how do we take care for the creative ecosystem of Vermont? The Flynn is the largest arts organization in the state by far, but there are a lot of amazing individual performing artists and small arts organizations that are part of this ecosystem. And how do we do a better job being partners and making sure they thrive? I talk a lot about access. That's critical. It's non-negotiable. How do we continue to provide access for everyone in our state to have with the performing arts? And what does that look like? And how do we be open to that? And then how do we become a national leader in this thing and in those efforts, in the creation of new work, in the way we serve community? How does projects like our playing fields, where we're going to schools across the state with these large performing arts, how does that become a model? Vermont's a really special place because it's quite a small state at 600,000 people. But that means that the Flynn is uniquely poised to be innovative and experimental about how we serve the large geographic region meaningfully through practice. And then how does that practice infuse other areas in our industry? Where does that might take me? We've already had outreach from places in New York and New Hampshire about programs we're doing that they're interested in being a part of. And that's interesting. Vermont's a unique place to be able to do that. So these are all the kinds of things I imagine start to happen in 5 years, is that we have developed these systems that we can point to the ecosystem we're a part of as thriving, that we can point to more Vermonters being served through our work, that we can point to more national relationships we've had with other arts organizations, other arts leaders, artists, foundations, etc. And that we're able to do that and be financially stable, which is, of course, the holy grail for all of us. But that's okay. That's worth getting out of bed for. That's meaningful work. And everyone who works in this field knows that when you see that 6-year-old kid with a big smile on their face because of the show they're a part of, the whole thing was worth it.
I mean, I think so, obviously. So to be a little more micro about it, specifically for these two roles, what's success in their first year? What does that look like to you?
Well, in the CGIO role, which I actually think sounds nice, CGIO kind of rolls off the tongue. The CGIO role, what that looks like is the first year has been a year of learning and listening and collaboration, right? We have a team of very smart, dedicated people working at the Flynn. Some of these people are really excited by the prospect of kind of having a new leader in the organization, and some people are nervous about what the implication is. So, and that's true, and it's okay to say that. So the first year for that role is, how did we knit together a team? How do we all feel like we're rowing in the same direction, and how are we proud and passionate about the work we're doing? And the director of marketing, sort of similarly, we're launching a new website. We've got some new initiatives. We want to make sure we're driving people both at our ticketed shows and our free shows and our education events. And how is that going? And how well do we feel that the conversation with those audiences is meaningful? Those are less micro than you're asking, but that's how I really think of our success. We don't currently have a social media strategy that says, if I don't have X engagements on Instagram by next month, we failed. Like, that's not really how we think about it. And I think this new marketing director is going to have to come in and say, okay, how do I want to measure success on social media, as an example? Like, what are those metrics? And really, that's what these leaders are here to do, is to help set a meaningful, attainable, impactful goals together. And that's what the first year looks like, that we can really point to, oh, this is what we're going to do in the next 3 years together as we head towards our 100th birthday.
Okay, so one more before we close out. You talked a little bit about some of the qualities that you need in these two roles, but what kind of mindset do you think is really essential for someone coming into the Flynn right now? What personal qualities do you think will be most useful?
Well, I have this as the cover of our strategic plan.
Come curious. Okay. I like that. So curiosity is very important to the Flynn.
I think so. I mean, we're not stuck in this is the way it has to be, or this is the way we've always done it. So be curious about what's possible. That's important to me. I think real joy in it. Like, I want someone who, when they stand in the back of the theater and it's full of 1,400 kids clapping or dancing or whatever they're doing, that they love that actually moves them. Be proud of that. Be wanting to be of service to a community. Vermonters fiercely care about their state, and someone who might be joining that, come be part of that party. These are kinds of things. I have talked about kinds of adaptability and flexibility, because change is happening, and that's useful. But these are always, I think.
It sounds like someone who has creative ideas. We do have a question from our viewers that will make this the last question, because then we have to close out, because we do have a time limit. I hate time limits. So Emmanuel in Toledo says, it's great to hear about the essential need for talented personnel, robust resources, and thoughtful alignment. But for your engagement efforts, how much of your strategy works in broad strokes like social media, newsletters, et cetera, and how much exists in face-to-face interaction?
That is a really articulate and brilliant question. And I think we're working it out. I think the answer changes all the time. I think, where we are on that journey is, some audiences right now, our relationship is they come to a show once a year. We're grateful they're here. We're glad they come back the next year. Some of them want to have more input. Some of them want to tell us how they felt, or what they saw, or what they look forward to. And then we want to have a mechanism to hear them and respond to them. I have we have some audience members who, if we don't send them the brochure, like a mailing, they don't really connect with us. And we have some who call me and say, Jay, why are you still printing? Like, it's a waste of paper. Don't send me this brochure. And so what we know is that, although I do talk in broad strokes, the specifics of that is really about a relationship. You call different people over different platforms. I'm not going to DM my mom on Instagram because she's like, you should call me. And that's just true. And we have to think through that together. And we have to be honest with each other about where our relationships are. And we can't go too fast. We have to get to know people. We have to listen. For people we're just meeting, for people we've known a long time, we have to respect that journey and that history and what they've already told us. And we have to have listened to that. So I think your question is exactly right. And I think the answer is, let's figure that out together, because everybody's different. And if we're going to meaningfully serve the diverse communities that make the state their home, we're going to have to be open to a whole variety of processes that are sometimes in parallel action, sometimes are deeply overlapped. and many of which we probably haven't thought of yet.
I remember back in the day when direct mail was new and fresh. And now, of course, direct mail is what people put in their recycling before they leave the mailroom, at least in my building. But you're absolutely right. There are people who put those up on their refrigerator or put it next to their date book and make plans. And then there are those people who want to see it on socials or want to hear about it from a friend. How do you get people talking? All of that is true. So,
And that's true across our field. And I
yeah,
expect whoever's listening, you're working in some sector of the industry and you're struggling with these questions. So I hope that you found some new ideas and you're going to bring them here and we're going to try them.
great. Well, that's a great way to close it out. I hope that we will see some, I hope everyone who was with us felt like they learned something about the Flynn, about Jay, about these two roles that ACG is working on. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the Flynn's vision for the future. We're really excited and energized by the organization's commitment to artistic excellence, community engagement, and the thoughtful way you're building your leadership team to move forward. So it's become clear to us, or it was clear to us always, and I hope to our audience, that these opportunities are about much more than just filling the roles. They're about shaping the future of the organization with you as part of a team that will have a meaningful impact on artists, audiences, and communities across Vermont. So thank you again. So everyone, thank you for joining us. We're proud to be partnering with Jay and the Flynn to fill the roles of the Chief Growth and Impact Officer and the Director of Marketing. And if you'd like to learn more about those opportunities or know someone who would be an excellent fit or who might be interested, please visit our open searches page. The link is going to be available in our chat. And thank you to everyone, as always, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Have a wonderful day. And thanks again, Jay.
Thank you.